quick reminder that all our subscribers can get 15% off their tickets to Epic Web3 conference. And this conference is special because just like this podcast, it's focused exclusively on building and growing Web3 products. So among conference speakers are people who are responsible for building and growing products at POAP, MakerDAO, Polygon, MetaMask, Decentraland, Gnosis, and many, many more. The event will take place on the 9th of June in Lisbon, and the agenda is already out. You can check it at epicweb3.com. If you decide to buy a ticket, just remember to type Web3 Talks code during the checkout to get 15% off. And we are live. So today's guest is Julien Genestoux or Genestoux. Yeah, thanks for correcting my French. Pardon my French. Who is a co-founder and CEO of Unlock Protocol. And Unlock Protocol is a tool that has many faces in a sense, because on one hand you can just create your NFT collection and share it with your users. On the other hand, you can lock some content, so you can token gate access to your video, poll, or a blog post. But what you can also do, you can also use Unlock to provide subscription. So people can pay some amount every month to subscribe to your content, just like we know from the Web2 world. And it's also been used in ticketing. So if you took part in EthCC 2022, you probably used Unlock because they have been responsible for tickets back then. So
yes,
Julien,
maybe I should clarify why these things, because they go ahead. I was going to say they look different, but they're actually the same thing under the hood. It's really the concept of membership is the idea that when I have a ticket to EthCC, I'm a member of the conference. When I have an online subscription like Netflix or Spotify, I'm a member of Netflix and Spotify, and that allows me to access the services, which is basically streaming music or videos in that example. And these memberships can be one-offs like tickets, but they can also be recurring, like we've seen on the media subscription side of things. So really, at the core, they're the same kind of object. And the analogy that I tell all the time is like, every website is different. Riverside, the tool that we use to record this podcast, is different from Facebook. It's different from my blog. But they're all made of the same concept, which is basically, some HTML, JavaScript that is rendered from a different website or web server inside of my browser. And so really kind of Unlock is a protocol for memberships. It's an easy way to create all kinds of membership from a single standard contract.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And it's a good, glue that connects together all these points. So, Julien, you've been around for a long time, and in tech in general. I know that you worked in Medium. You are also working with RSS feeds for a while. So, what chain of events led you to work on Unlock?
Absolutely. So it's actually pretty related. So my previous company is called Superfeeder, still exists. And that company was sold to Medium, and that's how I ended up at Medium. But what it did is build RSS feed APIs. So an easy way for, publishers, creators to publish their content in the form of a standard feed. So basically all of the content is different, but the schema is the same. And that company was sold to Medium in 2016. When I joined Medium was the time when I was really thinking a lot about already kind of business model around the internet. The idea that people are, basically the only monetization until then was ads, basically. Like you create a website, you put ads on them, and that's how you make money. And I was really frustrated with that experience because I realized this is a very centralizing mechanism. If I'm a big brand, it's so much easier to go give $1 billion to Facebook than it is to give $1 million to 1,000 small sites. And so it's centralizing. And for me, that was bad because the web is better when it's decentralized. And so really started to think a lot about okay, how can we build a business model for the web that is decentralized? When I joined Medium after selling Superfeeder, Medium was asking the same question for itself. It's how can we monetize the content in a way that is not attention driven, but more membership driven. And so Medium introduced a membership model that people are pretty familiar with, where you pay $5 a month and you access some of the content that's published on Medium behind the paywall. And I realized, well, that membership model that Medium is doing, every website in the world, every application, every single organization could have its own membership. The reason why it's not the case is because it's hard, because you don't actually have the mechanisms in place to build this. You need a database, you need a, etc., etc. And so really the goal of Unlock is to build an easy way for people to do these things in a decentralized way. Make sense?
Yeah. And, you've been working on Unlock for quite a while. You've been here in, 2018, as far as I know, when it's been a totally different space than it is today. So what were your early MVPs back then? Because 2018 is like CryptoKitties, more or less, moment.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, the first, I started working on Unlock in the summer of 2018. So as you said, CryptoKitties kind of at the beginning. CryptoPunk was out, but was definitely not as popular as it is today. And really the first prototype was first on main. Actually on Rinkeby we had a test. We had a test implementation first on Rinkeby, and then on Ethereum mainnet, where gas was much cheaper at the time. So it was not that different from what it is now. It was already kind of an NFT. Obviously, there is a lot of stuff that has improved since then, but it was kind of the same concept. Like as a creator, I would deploy my smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain membership contract, set the terms, and we don't have as many customization, but the core idea was like you could already set the price in ETH, obviously, the supply, how many members you have, and the expiration. Because the unique thing about Unlock's NFTs is they're NFTs that have an expiration date. So your normal NFT, you mentioned CryptoKitty or CryptoPunks, they don't have an expiration date. Once you have it, it's yours forever, and it's the same. It doesn't evolve over time. But I do think that it's good for collectibles like artsy stuff, but it's not great for memberships. If you have a gym membership, obviously the gym needs to make money in a recurring way. So your membership expires every month, and it automatically gets renewed every time they charge your card. And so really the unique thing that we created back in 2018 was these NFTs that have an expiration date on chain. So felt really much like that. Was obviously, I don't think Wallet Connect was a thing then, so it was very much like MetaMask like. In terms of connecting with the wallet, we didn't have any, of what we built later on, which is the syntactic sugar, so like credit cards and things like this. But yeah, it was already fairly similar to what it is now, at the core, I should say.
And how this expiration worked, what was under the hood?
Yeah, so basically, and I don't know how technical you are and how technical your audience is, but it's, again, the same smart contract that you have for NFTs, except that in a normal NFT is basically two things. It's a token ID, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, sequential numbers, and an owner address, so your 0x123, if you're talking about the EVM ecosystem. We've added a third field, which is the timestamp. And the timestamp is basically when the NFT expires. So every single NFT in the Unlock ecosystem has these three values. It has an ID, obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, an owner, and an expiration timestamp. And that's the only thing. And so now I can actually query the chain to see if somebody has an NFT, and the smart contract will return true if the user has an NFT, but also if that NFT is not expired. If it is expired, the smart contract will say, nope, that user doesn't have a valid NFT, so they cannot access the content.
And this,
makes sense?
Yeah, these timestamped NFTs that can just expire is still even today it's a pretty new idea. So I'm wondering how have you educated people in 2018 when NFTs were very strange phenomenon and
so honestly it's taken time. Like the first 2 years, nobody knew about NFTs. Like obviously people had maybe heard of CryptoKitties, heard of CryptoPunks, but honestly very few people had heard of these things. And we were telling nope, these things are NFTs, so non-fungible tokens, and we're making a different kind, which is the one with expiration dates. Obviously about 2 years ago things started to change with the kind of the most recent bull market where everybody learned about NFTs. And it was kind of almost as frustrating for us because people had and still today had a lot of misconceptions about NFTs. Is this, can I just copy paste or right click save? It's no, that's not the NFT is not the image. people still think like, oh, an NFT is an image. No, it's not an image. The image is just a visual presentation of one single NFT, but the NFT itself is different. It would be the same as saying, oh, a website is a logo. It's like, no, a website is not a logo. Most websites have logos, but the logo is not the website. And it's the same with an NFT. Most NFTs have an image, but the image is not the NFT itself. So we had to do a lot of education, and to be honest, we're still doing a lot of that. As you said, in the crypto space, it's still, a lot of people will just say things that are not true. I mean, one of the most recent thing that kind of exploded in our face, not our, but like the collective space of the crypto industry, is the idea of royalties. From the beginning, we said royalties are a lie. There is no such thing as like enforceable royalties on the smart contract, at least with the current specification, which is ERC 721 or ERC 1155. But people kind of ignored this because it was convenient to say, no, of course crypto is better because we can pay royalties. That wasn't true. And again, over the last few months, it became obvious that it was kind of not only not true, but also a lie. And so I think in that space, there is still a lot of education to be made. Obviously, it's the same beyond that. Interestingly, though, people that actually don't know about crypto understand Unlock very quickly. I'd say even faster than people that understand crypto. And that's coming because what we do is actually not very, even though we do use crypto and blockchain, and I think it's actually critical to our success, we're not doing something that is, crazy and wide like yield or, these kind of DeFi things that you hear about a lot these days. So really one thing that I believe is we're doing something simple that businesses have been doing forever, but we're trying to make it simpler, easier for them to use that.
You said that people who are not familiar with crypto often learn, faster because, yeah.
What we make is not very, it is not crazy and different from what they've used. Like I often describe Unlock as a protocol for membership. It's like your gym membership, and everybody, I mean, at least in the US, and I'm sure it's the same in Europe, a lot of people have memberships to the local gym, to the library, to, your local video club, used to be back in the day, or a Netflix account or Amazon Prime. And these are things that people know and understand. And we just say, hey, we're building these things in the blockchain because it makes more sense for them to be on a blockchain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just like you said in the introduction, it really makes it easier because you don't need to have a database of these people, hold their email accounts, and then get worried that your data leaks because you're just an amateur blogger that wants to make $5 a month. So
Exactly. Not only that, but also, it's like the complexity is like, okay, if I'm an amateur blogger, I have to build that system, and it's not trivial. Or I have to use a platform, but then the platform gets to decide. I can use, a Substack or some of these, but then these platforms are the one that actually are deciding what kind of content I can publish. Maybe they say, oh, you can publish anything, but they will do, at least they have they make decisions in terms of how my content looks like. They use a font, they use certain way of displaying it, and maybe I want something different and I cannot do that. So it's either I use the platforms, and I mentioned Substack, but it would be YouTube or any of these, or if I try to own my own distribution channel, then it's a lot of work to build, it's a lot of work to maintain, and it creates friction for my users. Like, no, my users need to actually sign up, put an email address, put a password, put their credit card, and I have to convince them that I'm not going to do something crazy with the credit card, which is a lot of work.
Yeah, and like, how have you done this education? Like, was it like workshop, blog posts, whatever, conferences?
Yeah, all of that. So we definitely have a very active blog, and I would definitely, ask anyone to look at this on unlock-protocol.com/blog. So pretty easy. We do speak a lot at conferences. I do podcasts as like we're doing here. We also have webinars. So on our team, Chris, who runs marketing, is doing this what we call membership 101 webinars. We do that once a month, where we explain to people like what we do, how we do. And again, what's interesting is like we almost have more success with the non-crypto people than with the crypto people, which for me is a good sign. Like, it's a sign that we're doing something that actually solves a real problem, not just, I don't want to say invents a new thing, but, in the crypto space, we sometimes tend to just like do crazy things, which are fun, exciting, but don't actually really, solve anyone's problem yet, at least.
Yeah, and do you, because like right now you're like a big project, but back then, like, how have you acquired your very first users? Let's say like first 10 users.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, the first thing that I tell people in the company, at Unlock and beyond, is like we need to dog food. So I was the first one. If you go to my blog today, there is a membership that dates from 4 years ago, and now I have about 180 members, if I'm correct, paying $5. Really trying to show people, okay, we'll show you how this works, and then we'll do the work. And so that's how we started. We the first few events that we're using Unlock for ticketing were events that we organized. So trying to, again, be the change that we wanted to see in that world. Then started to track with a bunch of publishers. So one thing that we did a couple of years ago was work with Forbes.com, the big media site, and they had a big crypto section, and so we talked to them about using Unlock for the crypto section, and so that's the kind of thing that we've done. From there, obviously, there's definitely a word of mouth that gets into play, and so people learn about Unlock because they've used it somewhere else or because they've seen how it's cool it is, and then it starts to trigger that flywheel. Obviously, we're in the crypto space. We're trying to convince anyone who writes about crypto or uses, crypto extensively, when they have any kind of membership, to use something like Unlock. And it doesn't have to be Unlock, but I tell them, hey, you're not credible if you're not using Unlock. But believe it or not, there's still a lot of crypto projects, publication that refuse to be paid in crypto, refuse to actually have a crypto system. And when they're paid in crypto, they say, oh, we just use Coinbase Commerce, which is not very much crypto. It's just, it's like PayPal, basically.
Yeah.
And so it's been a journey. It's been a really good one. We're really learning a lot. And so that's how we grow.
And like regarding this addressing more mainstream audience, what I really like is that you made some rebranding. I mean, this is something that POAPs did like years ago, because they called this very specific category of NFTs POAPs, although they are just NFTs. But they call it to like differentiate from the speculative assets. And what you do is like you call these smart contracts locks, and these NFTs are keys, which makes it super easy to understand. So how you came up with this idea?
Yeah, it's interesting because like it was kind of exactly what you described. The beginning of NFTs, we're like, okay, should we call them NFT? Should we call them ERC 721? And we're like, no, I mean, nobody understands what these things are, and it's just going to be more complicated. So let's find terms that people understand. And our name was Unlock because our goal is to unlock the web, is like move the web from an attention-driven economy to something that is more, membership-driven or value creation-driven. And so it was like, okay, unlock. Well, the contract needs to be locked, and then the users, obviously, if they want to access, they need a key to access, and so that's how we went for this, unlock, lock, key metaphor.
And I know that you have some other like UX friendly initiatives, like this walletless airdrops and other features. So like, do you have any process for coming up with these solutions? Some kind of like user testing, interviews, community work, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're still a very small team, but we do have a product manager that is doing these kind of user surveys right now. Until now, it was mostly like, okay, having a conversation with someone and trying to understand. So not very formalized as a process, but we're trying to formalize because we think it's critical. And exactly what you said, even though we are using crypto, and again, more than using, we rely on blockchains and we think it's critical. We feel like most people will probably not care about the internals, beyond the fact that it works and it should work. And so we need to build this syntactic sugar on top of what they're doing. So for example, we have what you described, the walletless airdrops. We realize like when people do airdrops, you've seen these threads on Twitter like, oh, drop your ENS. And it was like, well, this is not great. Like it's just bad UI. Most people use email as the number one identifier. What if there was a way to just, airdrop by email? And so that's what we did with this walletless airdrop, which is basically, you want to airdrop an NFT to someone, you just put their email address. This email address is used to compute, or to create, I should say, not compute, but create a random wallet address to which the NFT is assigned, and then the user can actually use that to claim the NFT later on. And so that's one of the things that we've built on that front. Another one that is pretty obvious and popular is Apple and Google Pay and credit card support. So it's the idea that, okay, I might not have a wallet myself, I might not have cryptocurrencies, and even if I do, I might not have enough of the tokens that I need to do the payment. Well, this is fine. I'll pay with my card, and then I'll still get the membership NFT, because I think, and this may be controversial in that space, that the payment itself is not the most interesting things about crypto. What's interesting is the programmability of things after this. So the way I pay, I pay today, great, move on. Now you have the membership, and the membership itself for me is more interesting than the payment itself. So that's why we introduced the credit card payment. We also have these concept of unlock accounts. So for people that don't have wallets, they can still have an account with us, which in practice has, gives them an on-chain identity. And then they can just pay with card or claim the NFTs if they're free NFTs without having to worry about any of the crypto details.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of scale do you have right now? Like, how many locks and keys do you distribute?
Yeah, so what we look is what we call the active locks. So the number of locks that have sold at least one membership in the last 30 days. And so we have actually it's public on the website where we measure this every time. Right now we have about 235 active locks. So again, contract that have sold at least one membership. We have sold 304,000. I mean, a bit more than this. 304,859 NFTs, so memberships. Out of about 5,600 locks deployed. So really kind of trying to be expensive here. So like locks deployed is like the contract that have been deployed, about 5.6 thousand. Keys sold 305,000 roughly. And then active, so the one that I've sold in the previous month, 235. And this is across all of the networks, because at this point we're deployed on 8 different networks. Ethereum mainnet, Polygon, Gnosis Chain, Arbitrum, Optimism, Avalanche, Binance, Celo, and we're actually adding more every not every week, but like fairly often. We'll have a couple more announced very very soon, and our goal is to grow from there. So we look at these at all of the networks as in the same way, because it's not our choice to go on a it's like if you decide to go deploy your membership on Binance, it's your choice, not mine.
Hey, I got a message for you from our friends at OrangeDAO. If you don't yet know, OrangeDAO is a DAO built by founders who've gone through Y Combinator, and they focus on investing in and accelerating Web3 ecosystem. So the message is that their fellowship applications are open. What's their fellowship? Well, if you're a builder that has an initial idea, but feels like you need money or some mentoring to really pull it off, then this fellowship might be something for you. The way it works is they give you 25k, and for 10 weeks you get mastermind meetings, dinners, and get tactical support from OrangeDAO members and partners. So if you feel like it might be something for you and you want to turn your initial idea to full-time project, then go to fellowship.orangedao.xyz and see whether it's something for you. The applications deadline is 30th of June, so there's still plenty of time, but I highly advise you to not wait till the end, because it might get pretty crowded. So thanks a lot, and we are returning to the episode. Sure. And you were responsible for this EthCC ticketing, and this is a use case that I'm very bullish on, because I hate secondary market when it comes to tickets. Like, this is a mess when it comes to concerts or sports. It's terrible. So could you tell us like how this partnership looked like how you prepared all that and how it worked in practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, what I said earlier about dogfooding, we've I go to a bunch of events, and every time I'm like, well, the ticketing here should be a membership, should be an NFT. There's no reason why it's something off chain. And so I've actually spoken with the EthCC team a couple times, and at some point say, okay, you know what, let's try. And so the first year they tried to do this with a small subset of tickets. So they say, okay, cool, only a few people will do NFTs, and that was great. That was a way to get started. And then last year, what they've done is say, okay, now everybody will need to have an NFT ticket. And so they deploy the smart contract on Polygon, and then they charge using USDC on Polygon, and they told everyone before. And I think that was great, because they disabled transfers as a way to make sure that there is no of that secondary market that you described. Like, once people buy, they cannot actually transfer the NFT. By the way, with Unlock, each NFT is completely customizable. You can make it transferable, non-transferable, expire, make it expire, make it not expire. You can have a cap supply or unlimited supply. It really is up to you, the creator, to decide these things. And so EthCC decided a bunch of these things. And then we built a whole ticketing interface on top of this. So the NFT itself, I cannot really show up at the conference and show you my NFT. It's not ideal. So we have them show a QR code that is generated from the NFT. We said about earlier, like the image is not the NFT. You can have an image that is a QR code on top of an NFT. So that's how we did this, and then basically organizers could use their phone to scan the QR code, and that gives them access to the venue from there. So really, that's one thing we've built with EthCC. But not just EthCC. I mean, in Poland, actually, ETH Warsaw last year also used Unlock for tickets. DAppCon in Berlin uses uses Unlock for tickets. MCon uses Unlock for ticket here in Denver in the USA. And we're talking with a lot of different events. ETH Taipei actually happening in a couple of weeks in Taipei is using Unlock, etc., etc.
And what kind of utilities have you seen regarding these NFTs? Because this is, for me, the most interesting part, where you can not only add utility to tickets, but also like bring this community together after events. So you have like these two, things that you can do with tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of utility? Honestly, anything you can imagine. So accessing venues, we talked about this. That's one type of like physical spaces. And by the way, we've seen this for conferences and venues, but we have seen this even for physical clubs. So you cannot, you can only enter if you have an NFT. And in Denver, during ETH Denver, there was an activation where you could only access a Shake Shack restaurant if you had an NFT. It was Arbitrum did this, which was actually a pretty cool activation. So accessing physical spaces. Obviously, the counterpart of this is accessing virtual spaces. So things like in the metaverse. So, there's Decentraland, for example. Somebody built a Decentraland integration where you can only enter, it's an island on Decentraland if you have an NFT in your wallet. So same idea. Accessing content. Obvious one, there's content on a website. You can only see it if you have the NFT. So the normal so-called token gating. We've seen people, the benefits including, for example, voting. So if you have a ticket, then, or an NFT, membership NFT, then you can use Snapshot or vote on these things. So that's another of these features. We have seen e-commerce, which is kind of interesting. You can access a secret catalog of product if you have an NFT. So say I show up on your store, I connect my wallet, you see I have an NFT, and you show me different products from the people that don't have the NFT, which I think is pretty powerful. Obviously, getting discounts is the other part of this. Is like on the e-commerce store, if I have the membership NFT, I can get discounts. But really, we're seeing more and more of these things. I mean, games is definitely one of the things that we're seeing a lot as well. This week, there's GDC in San Francisco, and you can access, weapons and different features of the game if you have an NFT, which is kind of cool. So really, I mean, Unlock is not about the, each membership has its own benefits, and we don't actually have a decision. We don't tell people like they can do whatever they want with these. We really try to provide the infrastructure for these to be easily deployable.
And a few days ago we talked on Farcaster about subscriptions, which is like one of the other features of Unlock. And we spoke with Colin from Paragraph that there was this bigger discussion that the adoption is not here yet. I mean, it's pretty early. As we see, some people subscribe to your blog, and there are, I guess, but it's still a small number. So, why do you think it is that way? What blocks the wider adoption of, crypto subscriptions?
I think the crypto space and a lot of people in that space want to kind of reinvent the wheel and kind of want to do something that is unique and different. And oftentimes, I think when they look for this, they miss the obvious reinvention of an existing concept. I think, when I tell people subscription, in the crypto space, they think it must be something crazier, something wilder. Oh, I'm going to buy, one thing that we've seen a lot of people try is people are going to buy the NFT and then I'm going to make money from the secondary market. So say I create a blog post, and Mirror is one of these examples. And I think it's an interesting model, but I don't think it scales that well. Most blog posts, people don't want to buy. And even if they buy, they're not going to be a big secondary market for this. They just want to read the content and access, some features. So I feel like we want to reinvent the wheel and think of something crazy when in practice, things are actually much simpler than what people realize. I deeply believe that, yes, the crypto space is sometimes a bit too... wants to do something completely new when it actually doesn't really, exist or it doesn't really solve anyone's needs.
Yeah, it seems like a giant technological playground for adults where we just have
Yes.
fun and build stuff, but sometimes we create something useful, but very often
Yeah.
it's just fun.
It's just fun, and I think, I mean, I want to make it clear, it's perfectly fine. I think it's actually part of the learning, but I think sometimes it's also important to realize, like, okay, well, there's some existing things that we can just do with the new technology, and that's going to be as, if not more, impactful down the line. I mean, think about this, right? When the internet emerged, we did things that we were already doing. It's not like movies didn't exist before the internet. It's not like reading newspaper didn't exist before the internet. It's not like even ordering things remotely didn't exist before the internet. The internet made these things much easier, much faster, much simpler. And I think crypto is going to be like this. People are still going to watch movies, are still going to have friends, and are still going to be paid. We're not going to invent whole new wild things that are going to come out of nowhere.
Yeah, totally agree. It's about, like, there are so many needs that are already there that it's more about, like wrapping your product around those needs than like finding some super niche need that no one ever heard about, and trying to be, this inventor. At least for most people, because there are some crazy inventors out there.
Yeah, and again, I want to make it clear, like, it's fine, right? I don't want to dismiss. I am actually a big fan of the idea of tinkering and doing random things, but I think it's also important, especially when you try to create a business and something sustainable, to think, okay, cool, this crazy thing, that's crazy, that's great. There's some interesting thing that I can take and apply to existing business models or existing business patterns that are actually going to be as impactful as the crazy wild thing.
Yeah, it would definitely help us to answer this very annoying question from people, like, oh, maybe not even question, but statement, like, oh, crypto has no use cases. And
Yeah. I mean, exactly that. Yes, it's. I think a lot of the crypto as the use case is actually coming from the fact that we tend to do these crazy wild things. When in practice, nope. If you do something that you've already done but you do it better, I think that's actually pretty good.
Yeah. And returning to business, like, Unlock ENC has some time ago transferred at least part of responsibilities to Unlock DAO. So
Yes.
it's like the first, maybe not the first, but like a very important step towards decentralization. And
Absolutely.
we quite seldom have people here who are already on the path that far. So could you walk us through, like, how it looked like whole decision making, and how have you actually technically turned some part of Unlock into a DAO?
Yeah, and to be clear, I mean, this is something that we have done, we've started to do. We're still on a journey, right? It's still something that we're trying to figure out and trying to understand how in the long term that's going to work. But I think the question that you're asking is, like, very important and very critical. So let me try to spend a little bit of time on this one. First of all, when I created Unlock, I really wanted it to be a protocol, to be something that is kind of, decentralized in a way that I am not acting as a gatekeeper. I'm not acting as a blocker. I'm not a single point of failure. The goal was to do something that would basically survive me. It's like, okay, if that works, it's useful. It shouldn't require Julien to be around and to do things. And so to me, that's kind of a critical piece of what we're doing, is like, how can we build something that is useful while at the same time not blocking anybody else on its use. So really thinking from the beginning, okay, we're going to create that protocol, but from the beginning, is there a DAO? Can we build something that has this aspect of it's collectively owned and governed? And so I really thought a lot about this. Okay, so how can we? I mean, what is a DAO first? Okay, so what is the DAO's responsibility? How can I identify, real people from just people that don't know about this? And so what we've decided is, from the beginning, build a token that would basically be, almost like airline miles, like I'm not sure what's the way to describe this, but like the loyalty system of the protocols. Like, if you use the protocol, then you should have more. If you don't use the protocol, then there is no reason why you should have any. So we try to move away from the idea of, like, okay, let's create an airdrop for everyone. It's like, let's only create an airdrop that is for people that have Unlock, that have used Unlock in the past. So we create this token, and then we decided to make a system where on every single transaction, so every time you use the protocol, it is valuable for us. It's valuable for the protocol as a mechanism of, okay, you're helping this make some progress, So let's actually work on a system where on every single transaction there is new tokens that are being minted. Once we had this, we had a mechanism to distribute ownership, to say, okay, cool, now people can become co-owners, stakeholders of the protocol. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So after that, we decided, okay, let's find a system to say, how can we make sure that these people are influencing the protocol? How can we build a system that makes it so that if you use the protocol, then you should be able to have a say? And so we introduced inside of the core protocol the concept of upgrades and say, okay, the protocol can be updated, can be changed, and when it is changed, well, every smart contract should be able to use these changes. And so we turned the lock into upgradable contract. Obviously not upgradable by us, because that would be kind of bad, but upgradable by the people that are actually using a specific lock based on versions that have been collectively agreed to. So one thing we realized, like, okay, if we want people to use these things, we need to make sure that they all have a say in the governance. And so that's when it started to kind of be obvious that we needed to have a DAO, but also, upgradable contracts and the tokens. And so if you put these three things together, the idea is like, okay, if I use the protocol because I'm a creator and I want to be paid with this, then I'll earn tokens. With these tokens, I can vote on the DAO to change how the protocol works. And so really that's kind of how that we started thinking about that loop and how we built the DAO. At this point, the DAO already has a pretty significant control. So it can already kind of vote on upgrades. It can distribute some of the governance token, because one other thing that we decided to do is, from the beginning, we realized, okay, the protocol, the DAO should be able to fund work. And so we allocated a lot of the governance token to the DAO, about 10% of the supply, which is more than anyone has at this point. And our goal is to actually bring most of the tokens to DAO, taking it step by step for obvious reasons. But yeah, so that's where we're right now. We actually are on the verge of a protocol upgrade in the next few weeks. That's going to bring a couple more things on that front, including something that I think is very unique, which is what we call cross-chain governance. It's basically you'll be able to make a decision in the DAO on mainnet, and it will propagate on every single instance of the protocol on every single network, and that's pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
Make
And
sense?
yeah, and how has it happened technically? Like, because you are a company, like Unlock
Yes.
ENC, as far as I
Yes.
know. So
Yes.
how does it work?
Yeah, so the company deployed a smart contract, the DAO contract. We use OpenZeppelin's governor. We also deployed a token, and we also use OpenZeppelin's ERC20 implementation. And then the unlock contract was created custom by us. And then we transferred ownership of both the tokens and the token contract, I should say, and the unlock contract to the DAO. And so now every decision has to go through the DAO to actually be propagated to the other component. And Unlock Labs, Unlock Inc., we call it Unlock Labs, owns a large chunk of the tokens right now, because that's how we kind of make sure that we can still distribute ownership. But we'll get there very soon.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you also, as a every reputable protocol, you have a grants program.
Yes.
So could you tell us, what have you learned building this program? Because, of course, the goal is to incentivize people to build on top of Unlock.
Yes, absolutely. So we have built one thing. We realized that, okay, even though we have this automatic system to distributing tokens, there's a lot of people that are going to build things that are going to be useful for the protocol that are not going to receive a lot of tokens through the protocol itself. And so we wanted to be able to make sure that these people we can incentivize and reward for their work, not in a payment terms, like in a way like, okay, you build something useful for the community, you should have your say in what is the next step of how things should work. And so we have a grants program. People can apply for grants, and anybody can, from a creator that wants to use this for their own shows, or from a developer that wants to build something unique. So they can apply for grants, and then there's a grant committee that has committee members, not even me or not even us. Committee members decide if this is a valuable thing, and if it is valuable, they get approved, and then they receive the tokens.
Mm-hmm. And what have you learned, running that program? Were there any surprising things, something that you thought it was much easier or harder, and it turned out that it's totally different?
Yeah, honestly, one thing that I realized is I mean, a lot of people they ask for decentralized things, but then they actually ask for a lot of help when you give them control. So that's maybe one of the disappointment in some way that I have, is like very few people tend to when you give them control, tend to actually seize that control and say, okay, cool, I'm gonna do this thing. So the honestly, the grants program, I've been disappointed. We have said, hey, people come build these things, apply and do this. At this point, very few of the grants that we've seen were, we've seen some really cool thing. I mentioned the decentraland one. There's a Unity one. There's an integration in Ghost that I'm really hopeful will actually have an impact. But we haven't seen that many people start to say, okay, I'm going to build something on my own, because all of these ideas is ideas that we gave to people and say, hey, it would be cool if that existed. So that's kind of my biggest disappointment, is really kind of, again, realizing that a lot of people, they don't really, once they have control, they don't actually care about control, which is, again, a bit of an irony here.
Mm-hmm. So you mean that like you would need more creative ideas from people?
Yes, exactly. I would want more people to kind of step up and say, hey, I want to do this, and then be able to do it on their own without actually asking us how they can do something or that. It's really kind of a, I think it's also a problem in the I mean, I've spoken with a bunch of other people that are doing grants. It's generally a problem that ecosystem is, that's also because there is money in line, but people want to get the tokens, asking for the airdrop, asking for, all of that. And then whenever there is actually work to do, not enough of these kind of step up and do the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. And whenever someone gets grants, is it in this like subscription manner? So they get like some amount every month, and if they don't deliver, you stop it, or how does it work?
Absolutely. So it's not in a subscription manner, but it's kind of a similar idea. It's like we basically say, okay, you've been approved, and from that moment they start vesting. So basically they start accruing the tokens that they've been granted, but they don't actually have access to them until they ship. So we say, say you apply today for a grant, you're approved today, which usually would take about a month, but say you're approved today, you start vesting from now. And if you ship the thing that you've said you're going to build, in the next 3 months, then basically you would not receive anything for 3 months. And then after 3 months, you still receive the stuff that you've already vested, but the rest basically streams. And so we use Sablier for this, streams for the rest of the 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's like a milestone based.
It's milestone based, exactly, and it's really a way to say, hey, we want you to be incentivized to build with us, kind of in the long term, not just like a one-off thing, and be part of this governance process with us. Again, we've seen some cool stuff. We've also been disappointed by other things. I think it's the way the ecosystem goes.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like since we are talking about hard moments, let's speak about one hard moment. Not sure if for you, but I know that for many founders, because like we are in a bear market, and you have a token, which means that your token went down just like every other token in the space.
Yes.
So like, how has it impacted, like ecosystem participants? Because like, as you said, some people are here for the money, and token goes down, so they are like, hey, I was here for the money, but I want to get money. So I'm wondering, how has it worked in your case?
That's been a lot of that, to be honest, and to be frank, and that's been disappointing, because people, I think they confuse cause and consequence. The token goes down, they assume they shouldn't do anything, when it should be the only way to make the token go up is to actually contribute work and do things. Like, if you want something to be valuable, then you need to make it valuable. It's not going to become valuable because some magic thing is going to fall from the sky. And it's not just about unlock. Like I'm actually I was just appointed to be a member on the Graph Council. So it's another team, and I'm helping on the DAO level. And it's the same ideas. Like, we see people ask for stuff without actually contributing stuff. And so it's kind of sad to realize, like, people don't understand that, well, this thing is only going to be as valuable as it is used, as it is pushed forward. And it's the case for all of crypto. Like, one of my teammates, Patrick, says, whenever you have to do something and there's a way to use crypto, you should use crypto, because if you believe that crypto is the future of money, the future of work, the future of XYZ, it can only be if you use these things. It's not, it's like, we're not going to convince our neighbors or, friends to use crypto if we ourselves don't use it. And so the only way these things become valuable, and the only way in the end we get paid for our work, is like other people use it. But that's also sometimes weirdly controversial in that space, which to me is a bit disappointing.
Yeah, sometimes people have this like, can devs do something approach.
Yes.
For sure.
Exactly. And it's kind of the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like they should be the one. Yeah.
Yes. So when the bear market hit, like, did you take any actions regarding this token price, like telling people, look, like basically the same thing that you told me a few seconds ago?
Yeah, so we honestly we don't look at the price ourselves. Like,
Yeah,
it's not a short-term driver. Obviously we think eventually the price will be high because the protocol will be adopted, but we think looking at the price on a daily basis doesn't actually help anyone. It's really about looking at the long term. It's like, okay, how it's going to look in 5 years, in 10 years, and what are the impactful things that we can do now to actually make this go high eventually.
Sure. So, like, I'm wondering, because we were talking about metrics, and as we said, like, coin market cap is not the best metric because it's a lagging indicator, and it's often full of sentiment that's not even about your project, but it's about the whole market. So it's like very bad indicator for seeing whether the product makes sense. So I'm wondering, what are your indicators, your kind of metrics and KPIs that you follow? You mentioned already locks, the number of locks, the number of keys.
The number of keys. Yeah, these are the ones. So active locks, active keys. And honestly, we look, so on our Discord, we have a channel where we post a message every time there's a new NFT being minted or renewed. And so to me, it's kind of the number one metric, but that's what I use as the heartbeat. And so seeing these happen every 2-3 minutes is when I'm excited. It's like, okay, cool, this thing is moving in the right direction, because every 2 or 3 minutes there is somebody buying a new membership, and so that creates kind of this flywheel. But yeah, definitely not looking at the price as an indicator of anything but the global sentiment around crypto, I think, more than our own performance. But again, I hope eventually that changes. I hope people realize, like, okay, if I want this to go up, then I need to work for this to go up. And again, we have a grants program. We have all of these things to make the case that, if you want to be part of this, you come, you join us. We'll help you. We'll we'll provide you with documentation, with everything we can, so that you can take the project and run with it.
Yeah, makes total sense. So, like, what's your near-term goal? Like, let's say like 2 years from now, how does the world of memberships look like if Unlock succeeds?
Yeah, so really it's kind of something where, I mean, in terms of number, we have this North Star of like 10 million memberships being minted with Unlock. And we think it's the next step is like, okay, can we get to 10 million? Is kind of one of the next goals. And then after this, it's probably going to be 100 million. And then after this, it's going to be 1 billion. But really kind of like, okay, getting there. How does it look like? Well, it looks like something that I think is much easier in the end. It's like, it looks like a web, because I think it's going to be mostly online, but where I don't have to create accounts everywhere. I don't have to put my credit card everywhere. I can just easily connect my wallet to a website, prove that I have one of the NFT that they require, which is basically usually signing a message. And then the website just gives me access to this. So I actually don't know if Riverside is a paid product, but if it is a paid product, whether I actually have an account, I can just connect my wallet. They check if I have the NFT. If I do, great, I can use it. If I don't, they show me a little checkout UI. Do you want to buy the NFT? Yes, I buy the NFT, and then I can use the software. No credit card, no accounts, no much simpler version of this. I think the social web could be like this. It's like, there's a lot of debates around how Twitter monetizes, or, all of these platforms. Well, maybe there is a world in which some of my posts as a creator are token gated, and I say, you can't read this unless you have my NFTs. And so I think Forecaster that we talked about, that would be something that I think would be really cool. Is like, there's some of the cast that I sent that would be token gated in a way that only the paying members of my community can read them. What's interesting here is like, even Forecaster in that world could actually make money, take a cut of every single transaction. As the distribution mechanism for my memberships, they should be able to do this. And by the way, we've built that system at the protocol level. So already in the protocol, there's a concept of referral fee, which is basically a way for, something like Forecaster to say, we'll take 5% or 2% of every single membership being sold through the Forecaster app.
Okay, and so we are getting till the end, but I would like to ask you one question, because you've been building Unlock for a while. It's been what, like 5 years almost.
Almost 5 years,
Uh,
yeah.
so what were the most surprising things when you were building that? Like, some things that were even good, either good or bad things that surprised you on the way.
Uh, I mean, on the good things, I think the resilience of the ecosystem, right? We've seen attacks, you know, people stealing funds, obviously, in the ecosystem, but attacks from outside coming over and over again, and in the ecosystem kind of surviving. I also am not more than surviving, like thriving. I also like that we're making progress. Like no matter what, we're able to see kind of interesting innovations and progress. Like think of the merge in the Ethereum space. I think that's a massive technological achievement. Like I can't think of anything of that scale in the decentralized way, obviously. So that's the kind of thing that I take as like, wow, this is cool. This is really interesting.
Hmm.
Stuff that I wish changes is like I want us to be more, dogfooding, is like using our products more and kind of aligning our discourse more with our actions. It's like I feel like there's definitely a lot of influencers in the crypto space, and the people like SBF and others were like saying things and then doing something different. And I still see a lot of people on crypto Twitter and others saying things and doing something different, like, oh, you should go leave your bank, and then, well, actually, we're going to take payment, but it's going to be with a credit card. Feels very much like hypocrisy, and we see too many of that, too much of that right now in the space. So really, that's the disappointing part, and I hope we start learning that it's not the right way.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely agree here because, like, the whole idea for this podcast is to have like no thought leaders, no traders, no noise, just founders. So people who live and breathe the things that that they build, they live in the crypto space. It's their like mental point of origin in a sense. So that was the whole idea here. So it definitely fits that. um,
Yes.
Julian, like I'm wondering, like if you were like, let's say, because of whatever reason, today you stop building Unlock. You cannot do it because there's some wizard that casts a spell and
Okay.
you cannot work
Okay.
on an
It
Unlock
would take a lot of
protocol.
work. It would take a lot of work to prevent me from doing it. Yes. Go ahead. What
Yeah,
do I do?
yeah. What do you do? What do you build?
It's a good question. Honestly, it's a good question. I'm really, really passionate about the work that we do at Unlock. I think I would look more at the wallet space. Like I think we're definitely in a world where there needs to be better option, and we start to see more. So maybe it would be too late to start working on these things. But I feel like everybody owning their private key feels like it's going to be hard and doesn't scale in the long term. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion around account abstraction in the Ethereum space. I'm a bit skeptic about that specifically because it feels like it doesn't work well in a multi-chain, multi-execution environment, which is kind of what we're seeing anyway happening. But I think there's something there as well. So something that would look like wallets, maybe the stuff that MPC does. So I think the Coinbase wallet does this is like, okay, no private key, ways to have social recovery, and ways to have kind of threshold in terms of signature that can be done or that are required to do something. That's what I would look at for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I have two very important questions. The last ones. The first one is where people can learn more about Unlock.
Yeah, so unlock-protocol.com. So that's our website. If you type unlock protocol in a decent search engine, you'll find us. It's the first link.
Okay, and the last question is, do you know any other builders in this space that might be a good fit for the conversation that we just had?
Yeah, let me think about people. I can think of a few. I mean, have you spoken? You mentioned Colin Armstrong from Paragraph.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that would definitely be someone. I can put you in touch also with Jenel from Coinvise, maybe if you're interested
Mm-hmm.
in chatting about these things. These are people that I think are right now doing some interesting stuff.
Okay. Okay. So Julian, like, thanks a lot for your time. It's been very fresh to talk with you.
Okay,
So I'm very happy that we managed to meet
connected.
and record.
Definitely. Thank you very much. Sorry about the scheduling challenges and issues, and hopefully the video will work. It's been a pleasure to chat with you, Mac, as well, and I'll see you online, I'm sure.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot.